Gamers don't want romance in games, the same way we don't like politics in our games. Well, most people will say yes. I typically agree with it, but I think in reality, we all know that this goes a little bit deeper than that. And we do want politics in games. We do want romance in games, but we want these things reasonable. Not like a one sided political message spectrum, a one sided romance thing, and whatnot. We don't want these. We just want reasonable things. I think putting politics in games actually enhances them if done right. I think romance in games, if it's not done in a cringy way, is also a huge boon and enhancement to the experience. And I think most of you feel the same way. It's just nowadays it's so poorly done, so absolutely unbelievable, so absolutely goddamn awful that we just prefer it that it's not in the games entirely, so we don't have to worry about how bad it's gonna be. I think that's the situation. And I think most of us can easily relate to that.
So last month, PC Gamer put out an article titled, "These kids do not care about romance. Game devs want you to know."
PC Gamer is also the place that said that Diablo 4 is better than... the Diablo 4 is better than Patch Vexal 2.
What today's teens want, and surveys say sex and romance isn't it. Now, they're talking about teens here in the title, but in the article itself...
No. This isn't it, okay? Whatever the fuck this isn't it. This is something that I want to see chased with pitchforks.
They talk about a broader range of ages, so 16 to 24. And before plunging further into the article and the content of the article, let's just say at the outset that we have no idea what the sample sizes are here. We have no idea how they've gathered the data or collected the information. We just don't know. So we'll just have to take the article at its word, and for the sake of this video, take the claims made in the article at face value. Okay, it seems, according to this, PC Gamer, or the article written therein, that increasingly young people, basically Zoomers, are not as interested in sex and romance in games. And what they want instead, it's
Zoomers
claimed, is friendship and connection, platonic connection. So it says here...
Oh, I guess actually that's kind of true and based. Because, I mean, look at our generation. I'm talking about the 30-year-olds. How many of us have more than 3 friends? 2 is a lot. 1 is perfect. I mean, 3 is like, goddamn, we're going records. And I'm talking about, obviously, real friends, people you like trust and shit. Yeah, not a lot of that around. And Zoomers nowadays, considering they're literally constantly on the PCs, yeah, there's probably not a lot of that much friendship going on this. So they just probably want connection in general. Wow, this is actually, I think, maybe true.
Surveys say that today's youth are more interested in stories about platonic friendships and social groups than romance and sex. And game developers are taking note of that. And other trends in teen media consumption. Again, not really clear about the age group here, because they also include, later down in the article, 16 to 24, and 24-year-olds are not teens anymore. But
I mean, in the modern day, anything below 23 is an undeveloped brainlet.
I want to talk about this a little bit in the sense that I don't think this just applies overall to teens or 16 to 24-year-olds. I think there's a little bit of fatigue when it comes to overlaying games with romance simply for the sake of romance. Yes, people make the argument that romance sells, but the problem is you have this situation in many cases, with RPGs specifically, where you do have romance, but you also have a story that isn't particularly convincing or good for that matter. And what you're getting, essentially, is romance slapped on onto the story.
So PC Gamer accidentally made an article that says modern day slop is not liked by anyone, and somehow magically boiled it down to gay trans romances are not what the youth crave. Holy shit! Did PC Gamer accidentally do a based take?
story, because allegedly that's what people want, and oftentimes it doesn't yield a good product. And thinking exactly of this phenomenon, a game comes to mind almost instantly, and that game is none other than Dragon Age The Veilguard. Dragon Age The Veilguard was a game that had a story, and had lots and lots of romance. I mean, it had
a whole whopping decent straight options, but you know what? Better than Assassin's Creed Shadows.
oodles and tons of romance. So many different options, angles. You could romance anyone. They're all different.
Imagine your only romance option in a game is to do the blackened meme on Japanese history and culture. Now that's one hell of a romance option.
And layered and nuanced and fascinating. I'm just kidding. But there was a lot of romance in any event. And I think Dragon Age The Veilguard was a perfect example of a game that suffered a great deal because of an over-prioritization of romance and overemphasis on romance to the detriment of the actual story. And this is something that can happen in many, many games. For the record, and I think many of you know what I think about romance if you watch my content on a semi-regular basis, I think romance, in the best case scenario, is something that you can add to a game, an RPG, as an addition. And the worst case scenario, it's totally superfluous and unnecessary. And I think there are different categories of people, even within the group of people that like romance and say they appreciate it. And you do have the extreme ones who think that romance should be in any and every RPG in existence. Those were the types that were posting all kinds of inappropriate stuff about Dragon Age The Veilguard and the romances. And you have a more reasonable contingent of people who think romance is important, even though I don't agree with them, who think, yeah, romance is important, but you still need a good story, and I'm not willing to sacrifice the story to romance because it's just not worth it. Now, the article goes further and talks about a survey.
What a game.
Done on adolescents, which is a still younger group, citing in UCLA's 2024 Teens and Screens report, adolescents were surveyed about what they want to see in media, and romance and or sex came in 15th out of 21 options. Its opposite, content that doesn't include
15 out of 21 options? Jesus. Wow, that's a lot of options.
Sex or romance came in at 8th place, and friendships and social groups came in at 5th place. And that, of course, makes sense for adolescents. They're trying to build peer groups. They're trying to connect with people.
Bro, what do you mean, adolescents? Bro, there's literally three spot difference between friendship and sex. Bro, what do you mean? Yeah, oh, they can't show much, but no, it's almost dead. There's like 20 fucking items on that list. 3 spot difference is interchangeable. Yo, what do you mean? Oh my god. That's wild.
But I think more broadly, not just applicable to younger people, what you get out of an RPG in terms of connection, I personally think has a lot less to do with romance and a lot more to do with friendship and companionship overall. So, for example, when I think about my adventures back in the day with respect to Mass Effect, the famous space opera, of course the romances were nice. I romanced Liara, and that was nice. But ultimately, I think the friendship with Garrus was far more convincing, long term. And I think when you're undertaking a long journey, as is often the case in an RPG, the romance tends to count a lot less than those friendships and the companionship of the people that you travel with.
Oh, and listen, I don't know about you, but I've kind of been reading this dialogue right here, and I'm not gonna lie, if I have the choice between living in the mountains as a fucking hermit or having friends like this, I'm choosing to just Minecraft myself, okay? Well, okay, a hermit for 5 years, then Minecrafting myself. But if these are my choices of friends, aka this, whatever the fuck this is, yeah, it's been an honor.
Who are undertaking this journey with you, facing life and death situations, and facing impossible odds. And you actually see this phenomenon in real life.
I don't think that's necessarily wanting connections. It's just these stories are never. Well, these stories are done alone, but they're always better with stuff. Eating is always better with people than alone, and things like of that nature. So these stories are always also better with someone, not alone.
You talk to soldiers who participate in the military, who've found themselves in life and death situations. Their bond, the bond that grows and emerges from these horrific situations, is far stronger than any kind of romantic bond you could imagine, because it cuts to the core of your existence. Now, it's no way near as powerful or strong as the phenomenon I'm describing here, but I still think the principle stands. Namely, that people appreciate the journey, and they especially appreciate the companions who accompany you on that journey. Yes, you can have romance, yes, you can have sex, but unless that's integrated into the story in a tasteful, interesting, and above all compatible way, it's going to fail. And even people who appreciate romance will pick up on that. So, case in point of a developer that I think does a pretty good job with the romance, even though personally it's not a big thing to me, as I'm not terribly interested in romance, is Owlcat. Owlcat romances are almost never over
No, this is not even not
the
funny.
top. They don't interfere with the actual story. They are additions, they're supplements. Some of them are quite nice. I will say, and I've said this many times, that if you ever play Wrath of the Righteous and you decide, especially say, to do the demon mythic path, that the romance between you and Wenduwag is one of the best ones in gaming. However,
Hmm.
it doesn't mean I
Yeah, sure. Win the log.
love romance. I just can recognize when it's good and when it's not. Still, all things considered, it takes effort to
Yeah, his point more or less here is, hey, if you're gonna have romance in a game, don't also like push it as a forefront thing. Like one of the reasons why Dragon Age Veilguard was so atrocious is because you were forced to establish your shitty trans identity and all of that BS. You're forced to do it. These things become front and center. These are not things that you choose, that you want to do. That these are things that are forced upon you. Okay? And, well, if you're gonna force, for example, romance scenario in a game on someone, man, it better be good. Otherwise, the whole game could be ruined because, I mean, damn.
access that romance. You have to commit to finding more out about it. And it does not in any way, shape, or form interfere with the main story and the main thrust of the game. And that's something I personally appreciate. On the opposite end, you have games such as Dragon Age The Veilguard. And it's difficult to say with Baldur's Gate 3 because the romance is in many cases very forced in the sense that it doesn't require a whole lot to access the romances. They're not difficult to pursue. All the characters are basically
Well, be fair. Romances in real life are not difficult to pursue, okay?
horny for you. And that's a very, very modern take, for lack of a better word, on romance. And yes, that kind of thing can have mass appeal. As I said, there's a certain contingent, and I don't know how small this contingent is, of romance fanatics who really want every character, every companion to be horny for them and have the option to romance them nonstop. And that is their bread and butter
Bro, these dialogues are just absolute ass.
when it comes to so called RPGs. The story is subordinate to all the horniness and romance. And Baldur's Gate 3, I personally think, did a very bad job with romance,
Hmm.
especially because it's so accessible. Especially because you need
Well, I mean, that's a personalized take, though. How accessible romance needs to be in games. Like, do you have to try hours and hours for it? Do you just get it? I mean, romance in real life is literally, hey, I think you're cute. Can I have your number? There you go. Bam, boom, bam. There you go. That's it. That's it. Tinder exists for a reason. So, I don't know. I feel that that's a very, very, very personalized take on that pod. But yeah, At the end of the day, bad romance in games should not even be included. If you're not gonna do romance properly, just don't do it. Do just the classic camaraderie thing, the brotherhood thing, and that's it. I mean, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is called Brotherhood for a reason, and it's fucking awesome for a reason, I guess. True, big true. Anyway, yeah, that was Spell and Shield, 10 out of 10. Bye!